Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
We're diving deep into a fascinating global showdown. It's playing out right in kitchens across emerging markets.
Mm-hmm.
Forget tech titans for a second, because our sources today, they reveal this really intense rivalry between Maggi and Knorr.
Yeah, and it's over something pretty fundamental, instant noodles.
Exactly.
And what's really compelling here, I think, is how this, seemingly simple product becomes a battleground for some seriously sophisticated strategy.
Right.
It's like a masterclass in how global giants Nestle with Maggi, Unilever with Knorr compete by going hyper-local. They're fighting for a spot in people's everyday lives.
It's so much more than just selling packets, isn't it? It's a deep dive into consumer psychology, cultural adaptation.
Innovation sprints.
Yeah, and relentless data analysis. So our mission here is to pull out the most important nuggets from the sources you've shared and really understand the mechanics of this high-stakes game.
Absolutely. Understanding why someone picks, say, a Maggi packet over a Knorr one in Jakarta or Mumbai or Lagos,
Yeah.
it tells you so much about that specific market.
So where did this whole noodle narrative really kick off?
Yeah.
The sources seem to trace it back to the early 80s, right?
Mhm.
Specifically Maggi entering India.
That was the moment, yeah. Nestle brought in Maggi noodles, and it was, revolutionary in terms of convenience at the time. And Maggi quickly spread across Asia, Africa, establishing itself so strongly that, in many places, Maggi just became the word for instant noodles.
Wow. And they managed that huge penetration by hitting some key consumer needs right off the bat.
Yeah.
Affordability, ease.
And critically, the flavor. They absolutely nailed the flavor profile.
The sources highlight the masala blend in
Yeah.
India. Yeah, that seems like a perfect example.
Oh, absolutely. That specific masala flavor wasn't just a product. It became a cultural fixture.
Right.
Maggi built these incredibly deep emotional connections, especially with people who grew up eating it. Real comfort food.
Knorr, though, they came into the noodle game later, didn't they? And kind of from a different angle.
Yeah, later on. Unilever leveraged Knorr's existing strength, in soups and bouillon.
Ah,
A brand already associated with, sort of, culinary quality. So their initial noodle strategy felt a bit more premium.
So aiming for more gourmet.
Kind of, yeah. A gourmet positioning, often mixing global ideas with very distinct regional tastes.
Okay, so you've got Maggi building from this foundation of accessibility and comfort,
Mm-hmm.
while Knorr comes in focusing more on that culinary elevation. So when did this simmering competition really boil over into a proper rivalry?
The sources seem to point towards the 2000s. That's when Knorr started expanding aggressively,
Right.
particularly in markets like Indonesia, South Africa, the Philippines. They were specifically looking for spots where Maggi might be maybe a little vulnerable.
Like gaps in the market?
Exactly. Maybe consumers wanting more taste variety, or perhaps options perceived as healthier, or just different packaging innovations.
And then there was that major disruption in India, wasn't there? 2015, Maggi's temporary exit.
Oh, yeah. That was huge, really disruptive. It created this massive opening for competitors. Knorr, yes, but also tons of local brands jumped in.
Also shaking things up.
Definitely. And while Maggi did make a strong comeback eventually, that forced break undeniably shifted the competitive dynamics in India and probably served as a sharp reminder to, all global brands about market volatility.
Building on that point about different approaches,
Yeah.
how do the sources describe the brand personalities they project? They seem quite distinct.
Very distinct. Maggi really cultivates that emotional, nostalgic, accessible image. Their whole message is about home, quick comfort, simple everyday moments. You often see themes like, mother-child bonding over a quick meal.
The classic 2-minute noodle slogan. The sources mentioned that's legendary branding, right? Even though apparently it takes longer to cook.
It really does. Usually closer to 4 minutes, but the name's stuck. That tiny detail just shows its cultural stickiness, They also use slogans like taste be, health be, taste and health, trying to bridge that gap. But their real genius, I think, is in flavor localization.
Like the examples you mentioned earlier.
Exactly. Masala in India, chicken savor in the Philippines, curry in Nigeria. Their communication is all about familiarity and that bold yellow-red packaging. Instantly recognizable. Projects that mass market warmth.
And Knorr. Are they deliberately doing something completely different?
Oh, completely. Knorr positions itself as the chef-inspired brand. It's focused on rich flavors, bringing a sort of restaurant-like experience home.
Okay.
They really emphasize culinary exploration, variety, offering more sophisticated blends like Chinese hot and spicy or beef pepper soup or tom yum.
So really trying to elevate the humble noodle packet, making it feel a bit more special.
Precisely. And in markets like Indonesia, the sources note how Knorr actually integrates its noodles with traditional cooking,
How so?
like positioning them not just as a quick snack, but as part of a broader cooking effort, maybe combined with local ingredients. And their packaging usually uses greens, suggesting freshness, quality ingredients. The market research you shared points to a pretty clear consumer split, actually.
What does it say?
Well, Maggie often gets picked for that strong emotional tie-in, the nostalgia, and perceived affordability. Knorr tends to attract those looking for new tastes, maybe a healthier image, or more complex flavors.
That difference in appeal must affect where they succeed most, right? How do the sources map out their market dominance across these emerging economies?
Well, Maggie is still the dominant force in many key markets. That's down to its first mover advantage and just deep penetration.
Like India.
Exactly. The sources highlight India Maggi holding a huge share there, close to 60% of instant noodles as of 2023. And you see Maggi's strength in Pakistan, Bangladesh, parts of Central and West Africa too.
Right.
And in places like Nigeria and Kenya, they've successfully branched into seasonings, leveraging that powerful brand name.
Okay, so Maggie holds these strongholds, particularly South Asia, parts of Africa. How's Knorr making its moves then? Where are they gaining ground?
Knorr's making steady progress through strategic innovation and pretty competitive pricing.
Okay.
In Indonesia, for instance, their noodles are apparently quite popular with urban youth, often paired with other Knorr stuff like soups or spice mixes.
Ah, the cross-selling.
And in the Philippines, they leverage Knorr's established presence in seasonings to position noodles as like value-added meal components.
Makes sense.
Plus, Unilever's huge distribution networks in Latin America really help Knorr tailor and push products effectively there too.
So it sounds like Maggie maybe benefits from this really intense noodle-specific loyalty,
Yeah, definitely.
while Knorr uses Unilever's broader portfolio and that culinary brand image.
That's a really crucial dynamic. Maggi often drives higher volume in just the instant noodle category itself, but Knorr can sometimes achieve better margins, maybe through more premium versions or by bundling noodles with their other products.
Right.
And you have to remember, these emerging markets, they are the growth engines for instant noodles globally, so that's why they're the primary battleground.
And none of this targeted strategy happens by accident, right? It must all be based on understanding the consumer. What did the sources say about the role of data and research in this whole rivalry?
Oh, research is absolutely fundamental for both of them. For Nestle and Maggi, the research goes deep into taste preferences like micro-regional differences,
Wow.
affordability levels for different income groups, and just daily cooking and eating habits.
Like those ethnographic studies mentioned. Understanding how people actually use noodles at home.
Exactly that. Those studies in India, they led to different masala blends tailored for specific local tastes. Or in African markets, research into meal frequency and, cooking patterns influenced everything from the product itself to the pack size.
And Knorr's research approach, similar but different.
Similar tools, but maybe a slightly different focus. Unilever and Knorr integrate that culinary expertise with socioeconomic data. They study how noodles get incorporated into traditional meals, not just if people eat them.
Okay, so more about the context of the meal.
Yeah, the sources mention research on how families in the Philippines might mix noodles with local vegetables, for example, or catering to that specific demand from urban Indonesians for convenient but still restaurant-quality flavors at home.
And they must be constantly tracking health perceptions too.
Oh, absolutely. Both brands are in this continuous loop of researching how consumers define healthy, which varies by region, of course.
Right.
And that feeds directly into reformulating products and developing totally new lines. They use standard methods, focus groups, A/B testing. But the sources also really highlight the growing reliance on digital analytics, monitoring search trends, social media chatter, online reviews. It gives them much faster feedback on demand shifts and how products are being perceived.
Speaking of health, that's such a huge global concern now with processed foods. Yeah. How are Maggi and Knorr actually tackling this? The rising awareness about sodium, additives, nutrition.
It's a major focus, no question, driven directly by what consumers are asking for.
So what are they doing?
Well, Maggi has launched these better-for-you options like add-in noodles made with whole wheat flour and multi-grain noodles, positioning them as healthier choices.
Okay.
And Nestlé is also actively working on reducing sodium across the board and fortifying noodles with micronutrients like iron in regions where that's a known dietary issue.
So improving the existing stuff and creating new health-focused options.
Precisely. And Knorr, well, they're leveraging Unilever's bigger corporate focus on sustainable living, so they put a strong emphasis on sustainability messaging around their noodles.
How did that translate to the product?
Things like promoting plant-based ingredients, highlighting sustainable sourcing for their spices, and developing more eco-friendly packaging.
So Knorr is kind of linking its noodles to these larger ethical and environmental goals.
Yes, exactly. In markets like South Africa and Brazil, the sources suggest Knorr positions its noodles within these broader sustainability and nutrition programs Unilever runs.
Yeah.
But both companies are clearly moving towards more recyclable packaging, trying to cut their carbon footprint, increasing transparency about what's in the product. Research shows this stuff matters more and more to consumers, especially that growing urban middle class.
Trust drivers.
Clean label marketing is definitely a big trend, influencing how they talk about their products now.
It's clear this isn't a static market at all. Looking ahead, what do the sources' market research insights tell us about where this rivalry is heading? What are the key trends?
Yeah, several key trends really stand out. First, health-first innovation. And that's not just a buzzword, it's fundamental. Expect ongoing demand for fortified, low-sodium, maybe even organic or natural noodle options.
Okay, health is paramount. And localization, still critical.
Absolutely critical. Hyper-local flavors are still non-negotiable if you want market success. That means companies need really agile supply chains and research teams to spot new regional tastes, test them, and scale them up fast.
Right, and digital engagement, especially for younger people.
Oh, vital. Younger consumers are mobile first, social native. The sources point to a big push toward engaging them online recipes, social media challenges, influencer partnerships.
E-commerce, too.
Definitely. Making e-commerce seamless is crucial. Expect more mobile-first campaigns, maybe even direct-to-consumer platforms popping up.
The sources hinted Knorr might have a bit of an edge in the sustainability area.
Yeah, the research suggests consumers, especially in certain segments, are paying more attention to a brand's ethical and environmental track record. Knorr's more public and integrated sustainability efforts could give them an edge, unless Maggi really steps up its own public-facing efforts there.
Okay, and the last trend mentioned was cross-category synergy.
Right. This looks like a big growth area. Consumers want convenience beyond just the noodle packet itself.
So bundling.
Yeah, the sources suggest bundling noodles with other things. Seasonings, sauces, maybe even little packs of protein or vegetables will become more common. And both Nestlé and Unilever, with their huge food portfolios, are perfectly positioned to do that.
So the future fight isn't just about the noodle itself anymore.
Exactly. It's really a data-driven race.
Yeah.
Success depends on hitting all those points. Innovation, nutrition, sustainability, it's pushing these brands to evolve into more integrated, multi-format food solutions. It's about blending convenience, health, affordability, ethics, global know-how, and incredibly specific local taste all together.
So what does this all really boil down to? This deep dive into Maggi versus Knorr, it shows how even something as, well, as simple and everyday as instant noodles becomes this incredibly complex stage for global brands. Adapting to hyperlocal needs, evolving consumer values, we've seen Maggi really lean on its powerful emotional history and just unmatched accessibility.
Yeah, that legacy is strong.
While Knorr carves out its space by emphasizing that culinary sophistication plus health and sustainability messages. And it's all fueled by just relentless market research.
Non-stop data crunching.
It really isn't just about selling noodles, is it? It's a fascinating look at how companies decode culture, economics, changing lifestyles in some of the world's most dynamic, fastest-growing markets.
Absolutely.
Which kind of raises a bigger question, maybe for you listening. Think about other everyday products you use. How might these same powerful forces that drive for hyperlocalization, the rising health consciousness, digital-first ways of connecting, and those demands for sustainability, how might they be shaping the evolution of those products, often in ways you don't immediately notice?